Hey everybody, this is Perch. Got a viewer mail here. It's called How Many People Understand It? Okay, I'm game. Let's see how many people do understand it. It goes, hey Perch, this isn't really your regular type of video. That's okay. But I have a short question for you as someone who feels cynical about comics. I'm looking for optimism. You may have come to the wrong place, but let's see what we got. You talk to people in the editor's room at both companies, I think. More one than the other, but yes. Are there many people there who you would say get it? This may not go well. People you think, like, if this person was running the company, we'd have a great era of comics. Or is common sense in these offices as low in supply as many of us believe? I don't want you to burn any bridges, so I understand if this email doesn't make it to video. Make it to video. This is a perfectly reasonable conversation to have. So it's a complicated question because I will say, and it pains me to say this a little bit, there's nobody I've talked to where I'm like, if this person was running the company, we would have a golden era. That's true. I think there are people with good ideas, but to kind of dig into it, comic books from my vantage point, when I think about the publishers and I talk to people there are a lot of good people there. They're people who mean well, trying to do well. I mean, but keep in mind, I'm filtering a little bit because I'm not talking to a lot of people, and they wouldn't talk to me either, who are just there to kind of push pencils around and do bullshit. But, you talk to people. We talked to Chris Conroy, and he's a guy who has enthusiasm for the business, who really does want to, he's got good ideas. There's lots of people like that. And they're not bad people, but they are stuck in a bit of a machine. And I think the challenge is I haven't met the person who can break out of that machine. Who can, and there could be a million reasons for that. Maybe it's just not financially worth it. Maybe it's caught up in a bunch of cogs. The bureaucracy is overhead. I mean, if you work for any kind of big company and you're mid-management or even lower management, and you think to yourself, I have a better idea. I know how to make this company successful. How do you do that? There's kind of two parts to being a leader. One is having the idea, and one is being able to execute the idea. And unfortunately, those two don't always couple together. It takes a really special person to be able to match those two up. So I can talk to people, and I've talked to people before who are like, I think we should do this kind of series, and I've done videos about this. Talked to the person who's like, I'd really like to get Walt Simonson in here to do a Thor story like once a year. You can even here's an actual real example. I don't think I'm giving anything away. Obviously, I'm talking about Marvel based on the characters, but the idea of I'd like to bring back the annual. This was an idea from an editor at Marvel. I want to bring back the annual. I want to do 4 of them a year for the biggest titles. 1 Spider-Man, 1 X-Men, 1 Avengers, and I don't remember the other one. Thor, Captain America, I don't know. Maybe there was more than that. Maybe it was 6. I don't know. It was the biggest characters, but it was the long-term biggest characters. They didn't have Miss Marvel in there. I mean, the ones that had a 40-year legacy. It was 6. It was every other month. That's what it was. Every other month, an annual. Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man, Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four. That was it. And the idea was because we're only producing 1 of these a year, we're going to do a 48-page, bigger comic, and we're going to go out getting the Legend to do a full story. We're going to give them a whole year. So figure out how much it costs to get John Byrne to do a Fantastic Four annual. And figure out how much it costs to get Walt Simonson to do a Thor annual. Just 1 comic. They got the whole year to work on it. They can make it a prestige, whatever it happens to be. We sell it for a very high price because you got a Legend on it. And really try and make it a one and done, but a good, solid story, and have it be a showcase. And then the next year, come back and you do it again with somebody else from that creative team that kind of represents, these characters. But the trick is you basically have a year to plan it. So lots of leeway, lots of time, disconnected from continuity. I mean, it should be in continuity, but not so tight to the monthly comic and everything else. But basically do this. And then at the end of the year, you could even put out a little a trade or a little omnibus, and a mini omnibus of the stories were made that year. So 2022, the signature stories. I think the guy even had a name for it. It was the signature line, something like that. And it was a good idea. It would be easy to execute, wouldn't cost that much, all things considered. You could kind of prestige format it, you get that second payment. And then if you're really getting lucky with it, you may wind up with a story that is the crux of a movie. So this may be where you have a writer to go along with the artist that is somebody who's a little bit more wired, who's good at, kind of taking this idea and generating to a nugget that could become a movie or a Disney Plus series or something like that. So you get that other back end revenue. The guy had even done a little bit of financial analysis. Like, it would cost a little bit more, if we want to get like Art Adams or Alan Davis to do the X-Men annual, which would be a great pick. Then you're paying a little bit more, but really not that much more. And you've got a baked in audience. You've got this whole output, so it would work. So that was the idea. And I'm like, you're smart. Great idea. This is good hope. Absolutely the right plan. And then kind of the sorrow of that idea getting chewed up and destroyed. Like, well, yeah, but, they weren't really interested, maybe not right now. I needed to first get a pitch, and then I had to get commitment before I could make a commitment the other direction. And this is the most backwards thinking of all was, I would need to get, as he was describing it, I would need to get Walt Simonson to agree that he wanted to do this before I told him the idea. I would need to get him to pitch me and then hope that he pitched me the same idea that I wanted to pitch him. So it kind of met in the middle, and then I could take it up. And you're listening to this going, what the fuck is going on? And you just watch these ideas get destroyed. And then, you get all the back end of, at the same time, I've got these 4 comics, and, I'm understaffed because an assistant editor just quit. And so now I've got to do this and this and this. And then this writer's not turning the script. And then I lost an artist over here because I did get the, Mark Miller will appreciate this, but I did get the, Mark Miller took one of our artists. So now, or not an artist, took somebody from Marvel, and that caused a bunch of chaos. Like, now we got to find somebody else. Anyway, that's kind of stuff that then the idea gets just kind of dissolved. And so you hear these things come around every now and then they die. What's funny is if you look at some of the pitches, you look at some of these ideas that sometimes get shot over the bow around what comic books could be, a lot of the very early ideas are pretty killer. They used to, in some of the trade paperbacks, some of the, the graphic novels, they'd put like the original pitch, and you read this stuff that's like overflowing with life. And you see comments from the editors and the writers, and you see Joe Quesada sometimes, and they're crazy. They're not all good, but there's energy there. Like, the page is crackling with energy. And you wonder sometimes, like, what happened? How did it go from this amazing, energetic, like super killer pitch to, kind of the blah that came out the other end? It's like, well, you got a dozen other hands involved in it. Somebody up the stream said, yeah, I mean, for that matter, I'm willing to bet the Jason Aaron War of the Realms event that kicked off Thor and ultimately War, I'll bet you that original pitch from Gore the God Butcher to, Jane Foster Thor to, the War of the Realms and all this other kind of stuff. I'll bet you that was a badass pitch. Really. And then somewhere along the line, somebody's like, well, we want to take this part, we want to make it an event. And then let's tie in the Avengers. And then can we fit Giant Man into this? And then how do we actually have the X-Men have a piece of this where they're doing some stuff? And then what about those, what about like the Gardner people? Can they come into the picture somehow? And it gets like, what if the Punisher got like a magical, Jotunheim axe? It's like, all right, stop. You took a good idea and you vomited it out into this nonsense, and you killed it. And I think there's some argument that just got stupid in the comments section a while back around, about our story's better now than before. And I think it's subjective, of course. There is no answer to that. You can pretend like there's an intellectual answer to that, but there's not. It's all subjective. But one of the things that I think was true before is that they didn't try and load up all of these stories with so much shit that it tips the whole thing over. And I think that's one of the big problems comics has. And I think, to your original question, are there good ideas with editors? Yes, there are good ideas. And then they get ground up in the bureaucracy and minutia, and they also and then if they're reasonably good, they get like a million bags humped on top of it, to the point that the idea just collapses under its own weight. So I think that's the problem that you have in a lot of comics. You have a lot. You just have so much bullshit. The ideas aren't pure anymore, and when they're not pure, you get this nonsense. And that's not to say all comics, but of course not. There's wonderful comics out there. There are tons of them. There are good things to read. Anyone who tells you otherwise is full of shit. There are good things out there. But I guess, okay, I'm going to finish with glass half full. Yes, you should have some optimism. There are good people. There are good ideas out there. The question mark is less, are there good people? The question mark is what's getting in the way of those good people and how can we kill it? Because I think there are some really solid, good ideas that are dying. They're being smothered alive. And that's probably the thing to solve. Anyway, thank you much for the question. Great one. Appreciated chatting with you, and thanks for listening.